Well, 30 years after it was last adjusted, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission is proposing an adjustment in the vertical revenue allocation formula to 45.17% for the federal government, 29.79% for state government, and 21.04% for local government. Under the current sharing arrangement, the federal government has 52.68%, and states get 26.72%, while local governments get 20.60%. Well, this and efforts of states to maximize resources in the diversification drive in the country is what the Executive Governor of Nasarawa State, Governor Abdullahi Sule, joins us to discuss this morning. Good morning, Governor Sule. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Happy Easter to you.
Happy Easter to you, sir. So first of all, let's get your thoughts on this new proposed sharing formula. What thoughts come to you when you heard about it?
Well, as the Nigerian Governors Forum, collectively, we actually proposed this review upwards in favor of both the states as well as the local government. Because while we commend the federal government for most of the major infrastructures and then other expenses that they are going through, the states' overheads continue to increase. And a good example, really, coincidentally, is Nasarawa State, where we are still using a formula based on population of 2006, given Nasarawa, for instance, 1.8 million people, when in reality, in one local government that has border with the federal capital, we have over 2 million people there. So in reality, we propose that locally it's been changed. So you can say that the states generally are in favor of this new proposal, from the agency.
And what difference do you think it will make to the country as a whole, to the economy, when or if this is finally approved?
Well, it will make significant, especially in the area of infrastructure and the management of local government areas and the states. It's not going to solve all our problems. Indeed, all the states and the local government areas and the council must brace off to generating internal revenue. Without us actually working on our revenue base, the federal allocation dependence is not going to solve all our problems. This is the reality. So this is actually going to address just a few areas that we are looking at, especially in the areas of the SRA, that is the salaries and the rest of that. But when you come to the infrastructure, the states must find ways to generate revenue. That's the only way you can address most of the lapses and the problem that we are having.
It's good you mentioned that, Mr. Governor, because a lot of people have been that we have a lot of resources in all the states in Nigeria, but some say the state governors are not working enough to optimize the potentials that are in the resources and largely spread in many states of the Federation.
Well, they may be right. When it is right, it's right. The reality is that a lot of states have great potentials, and those potentials are not being explored. And I will give you a very good example is with Nasarawa State. You can imagine, all our proximity to the federal capital and the rest. Nasarawa State was one of the least revenue generating states. When we came in the year 2019, actually, the state generated a revenue of not more than a little over 7 billion for the whole year. That's just an average of a little over 500 million monthly. So that's nothing to talk about. So we didn't even go into exploring new avenues of revenue. What we did was just to go and plug some of the leakages, in the first year. So by 2020, our revenue base actually had grown, to somewhere around 11 billion that year. And by 2021, our revenue base now grew to 16.9 billion. So those are the kind of numbers that we are seeing, So, and I think those are the kinds of things that still, I don't think we are doing enough either. So we had to bring in more consultants to keep looking at the various opportunities. But you can see that we have more than doubled, in just 2 years' effort. So, and I strongly believe if we keep going, Nasarawa State has the capacity to generate 30 billion annually, which is really maybe for one state in the Southwest. Lagos alone is generating about 30 billion, in just 1 month. But you see, because of the lack of industries, and lack of this, lack of that, so that's the reason why we've been able to do what we have to do.
So how do you think we can spread this message and have more state governors challenged to look inwards and not just wait, for the fact which comes at the end of the month?
I think the message is being sunk. Each time we go to the meetings of the governors, this message is actually keep ringing, in the ears of every governor that we have to go. Mr. President has hit on this item many times, say that you states, you have to go and generate your revenue, especially during the COVID-19 era, when we're talking about bailout, budget support and the rest of that. We came in and found that, and you will see that all we did during those years was to reduce the significance of the deductions we came in, for instance, in 2019 and we were faced with 3 payments. One was the budget support that was given before we came in, so it was going to be deducted. Secondly, we had the bailout that was also given, salary bailout, that we had to also pay. Deductions began in those ones. And then there was this 10 billion that was deducted, from the reserve that the federal government have, the dollar amount. Every state at the time that took was given about 10 billion. So again, we were faced with these 3 payments, in addition to the COVID-19. So I think the governors pleaded if it was possible for the CBN to suspend the deductions, just because of the reduction in the revenue that was coming on, especially with the price of oil. So that was done, and but that has resumed now, the payments. So those are the kind of things we go through. So if states will not wake up, to generate revenue internally and find ways of generating revenue, then you can imagine what is going to happen, which is the reason I came for this program. That's why we are having an investment forum, investment summit in the next couple of days, 11th and 12th of May, that specifically is going to address some of those issues, because a lot of states have great potentials. But until we look at those potentials and do that, we can't continue to depend on the federal government and federal revenue, as means of revenue. We have to look inwards, and I think that's what most of the states are doing.
Well, some state governments have pointed to the issue of exclusive lists as a challenge, that has been a limiting factor for them to access some of these resources and to explore. From your perspective, how much of a challenge is that?
Well, you see, the exclusive list, sometimes we look at other countries and just make comparisons with Nigeria. For someone like me, I'm lucky actually to have been trained and then worked and lived in a country like the US. And people try to make those kind of comparisons. In the US, it is this. In the US, it is that. Why is it not so in Nigeria? Nigeria is not US. So I think we have to be able to look at some of these realities and face them. And a good example is the oil and gas, for instance. Maybe that is one area that you will face. The oil and gas sector had always been promoted in the country, has always been promoted through the federal government by some other investors. The same thing with mining. Today, Nasarawa State is a mining state. However, we had allocated over 400 licenses for various cadastrals, and all of them were allocated by the federal government. So Nasarawa State could jump up and say, we want to be totally in control of these resources. So if it is given to Nasarawa State, can we actually do it on our own? If the oil and gas was allocated only to the list, can some of these oil-producing states continue to say they can do it on their own? You see, today, a lot of people will jump up to say, yes, we can do that. But how did it start? How much revenue was invested into that? How are we going to generate those revenues? So people are not looking at those things. They are just looking at today. You have to look at yesterday. What happened? How did it go before you can get to where we are? And I think that's the reason why I may not 100% be with you on the area of the exclusive list.
All right, and another area has been, well, the private sector obviously has a major role to play if states are going to contribute to the diversification efforts of the federal government. So how do you attract the private investors to your state? Then the issue or the conversation around ease of doing business also comes in. The issue of multiple taxation and issues like that. And it seems sometimes that state governments are just want to make the tax and they forget about the ease of doing business, of attracting the numbers into their states.
You are right. And I think that's the reason why I was telling you one thing, that without even opening new areas of revenues, we went ahead and just plugged some of the leakages. And I will not tell you we were able to plug 100% of the leakages. And we've been able to do what we did, without really opening new taxes. When we came in, we realized also about these multiple taxes you have mentioned. So we went back to the House of Assembly, and say that, no, we have to legalize some of these issues. We have to make sure that we provide the legal framework for each one of these taxes. We cannot be charging one tax. The state government is doing one, federal government is doing the other local government is doing one, and maybe communities are also doing one. They will kill the businesses. So we went ahead and consolidated all these taxes. And that's why we came up with the law on the ease of doing business in the country. And then we have the one-shop stop, where people who are registering new businesses and people who have complaints, they are going to just this new location. And for me, I'm happy that because of my background coming from the private sector, then I'm now looking at myself as if I own that business. If I own that business, I don't want multiple taxes. Therefore, because it will kill the business, so therefore we came up with these ideas, of ensuring that we have the legal framework for just one tax, and then let it be up to the states and the local government to find a way of sharing, rather than having the multiple taxes. So that's what we did. So most of these areas, we have not done that. Now, most of these areas, we are not charging them. There are no multiple taxes. In fact, even some of the multiple taxes we inherited, we stopped them. We ensure that we stop some of these multiple taxes. Now, going back into the area of ease of doing business, like you have mentioned, we decided to start promoting and attracting big commercial businesses coming into the state, because our state is a mining state. Our state is an agricultural state, so we decided to continue to focus more and more into those areas, and then attracting the big businesses like the Dangote agribusiness, like the Flour Mills agribusiness, like the Azman agribusiness, like the Olam agribusiness. So those are the kind of things we continue to do, so that we'll be able to assist in ensuring that we are promoting big commercial businesses that will attract employment, attract revenue, and the rest of that. So that is the direction we are going.
Yeah, so as a mining state, Mr. Governor, these businesses you are attracting, are they focused in mining, or what areas?
Yes, as mining, when we mention we are a solid mineral state, we have over 35 different kinds of minerals, but not all of them are in commercial quantity. So what we did was to select areas that we know will be attractive to an investor, because no investor would like to come in and start mining, and in 3-4 years, he has already concluded, because the amount of investment he will make in equipment, in drilling, in clearing, and the rest of that will be huge. So for that reason, we try to narrow them down to about 5 areas of lead, zinc, barite, and coal and the rest of that, so that people will know exactly those are the areas. We are not going into maybe some gold that they mentioned, because we know that we don't have the quantity size yet. So that's what we did in the area of the mining. But the biggest area of focus, other than mining, is actually agriculture, because Nasarawa State, based on the study and the fact that we still have the entire mapping of the state, so we know some of the areas we are blessed by water. River Benue has been very kind to Nasarawa State. Various rivers have cut across. So irrigation is wonderful in the state. We have waterfalls, we have dams, in addition to that for all year irrigation, so, and then we have fertile land. So we decided also to look at areas where there is plenty amount of land. For instance, when Dangote came, they were looking for somewhere about 60,000 hectares of land. It's very difficult to find this size of land, because this is almost the size of current Abuja, in just one location. So what we did was to make sure we go into areas where there are no conflicts with the communities, and then went into awareness and creating a lot of awareness and bringing all the opportunities that the people will benefit and the rest of that. So that's what we did. So we're looking at areas of our strength, not just general, and say that mining, everybody interested in mining, come. No, we're looking at minerals that we know we have in commercial quantity.
All right, Mr. Governor, I don't think this conversation will be complete without talking about the youths. What are you doing, even in the area of mining, agriculture, skills acquisition, and including the youths? Just briefly, please, Mr. Governor.
And the youth is our target, as a matter of fact. All these things I'm talking about is mainly the youth. Nasarawa State has been lucky to be close to the federal capital and therefore an attraction of the huge amount of youth that we have, in addition to the ones we already have. Yet Nasarawa State was not blessed with so many industries. So when we talk about these industries, especially agri-based, agricultural projects are the biggest attraction for employment, and the employment of youth is our target. So in fact, everything that we are doing when we talk about employment, when we talk about revenue generation is nothing about youth. And that's why we focus on the area of education, especially technical and vocational education, so that our youth are well equipped that they can go into these industries and that. You've seen Mr. President visiting us recently, and that's one of the things he did. He came in and actually commissioned one of our vocational centers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State. Thank you for spending this Easter morning with us. Enjoy your holiday.
Thank you so much. I wish you the same.